Alright, continuing on. So the last video we finally animated the pistons and everything. So you learned how to set up keyframes. You set up how to go into the blend curves, dope sheet, whatever. And how to actually straighten it out. Now some of the stuff I am learning on the fly. I'm not going to lie to you about that. I am an avid Maya user, so some of the terminology I'm not real familiar with, or some of the immediate tools are located. So some of the stuff I am just kind of figuring out on the fly. Like the animation, this is actually the first time I'd ever even been inside the animation, is working on this scene, doing this tutorial. So, yeah, let's continue on. Let's see. So this video, I said we'd go ahead and start work on the camshaft. Now we need to ask ourselves a question: do we want a dual overhead cam, or do we want a single overhead cam? What is the difference? So the difference is, with a dual overhead cam, you actually have two camshafts that run along the top of the cylinders, whereas a single overhead cam usually runs right in the middle of the two cylinders, and they produce less horsepower. Generally, you'll have at least two valves. So you'll have an intake valve and exhaust valve. The intake valves will always be larger than the exhaust valves. And on top of that, if you have dual overhead cam, say a 16 valve system, that means each piston, or each cylinder specifically, will have 4 valves, which gives you 16 valves. Vehicles typically will have anywhere from 12 valves, or they'll have, let's see, it's 8 valves, 12 valves, or 16 valves. Supposedly there is a 5 valve per cylinder setup. I have never seen it, but this is just speaking from experience. So, dual overhead cam versus single overhead cam. We can actually do both. I'm not going to, but we could. There was actually an app I made a long time ago. Long story short, you could actually build your own engine, and you could choose between single overhead cam or dual overhead cam. Single overhead cam. Let's go ahead and duplicate this guy. And we're going to scale it down. I'm going to click on this little blue box, and this way it keeps the it keeps everything the same. It just makes it a little easier to work with, but it basically keeps the whole thing the same. So I'm actually just going to continue scaling this where it goes the length of the engine. And then I'm going to duplicate that. I'm actually going to scale this out just a little bit, but then I'm going to bring it in like so. So this one, I'm actually going to come over here. This one is actually going to be, I think I'm just going to set this up as a, wow, I'm getting tired. I'm probably just going to set this one up as a single overhead cam. Or actually, I'm going to start to set up as a single overhead cam, but it'll ultimately be a dual overhead cam. Why? Because I said so. No, realistically, is because I want to show you how you'd set up a single overhead cam if you wanted to go that route. And you'll also be able to see how to set up a dual overhead cam. We also need to turn off this. Okay, there we go. So that's the only reason for this. But I do need to make this a little bit shorter. So generally speaking, whenever you have lobes, it should just kind of like form a square whenever you look at it. That's not the exact correct thing to say, but I mean, generally speaking, I'm not going to say always or whatever, but generally speaking. So we're going to press 1, and we're going to go into our wireframe. So lobes. What is a lobe? A lobe on a camshaft is a smooth, perfect sphere, or cylinder, I mean, on one half of it. The other half is essentially stretched out like so. About like that. That is a lobe. Probably need to go just a little bit more. So lobes have like this egg shape, and this egg shape is actually what allows it to open valves. So this is a lobe, and you'll see this a lot more here in just a little bit. So if we're going to set up, I'm going to say we're going to set up, you know what, let's go ahead and do a 16 valve system. Why? Because we can. Lol. To set up a 16 valve system is what we're going to do. Is that means we need 4 lobes per thing, per cylinder. So these 2 lobes will represent the intake. And these 2 lobes can represent the exhaust. So whenever you have a lobe system, if this is TDC, that means the exhaust and the exhaust and the what's that called? The exhaust and the intake will both be closed. So is what we need to do is we need to come down and right here on the upstroke. Alright, there we go. Delete keyframes. So let me go ahead and reposition these. We will delete these keyframes, and now that we don't have auto key on, should be good. So I'm actually going to space these out, so it probably wasn't too bad of a thing that happened. I'm not too terribly upset about it. I'll lose a little bit of sleep, but not much. So, okay, that is actually one thing I do not really care for Blender. I wish, if it didn't have a keyframe in there, I wish it would not create keyframes. So, that's actually the next thing. That's actually kind of the next video I need to make on differences between Blender and Maya, what I like and what I hate. I'm actually going to save this. Make sure you hit Control S frequently. So anyways, this is TDC. This is where the fuel inside the cylinder has actually exploded, which forces a piston down. This is actually your power stroke. Coming up right here, this is what's known as a dead stroke. The intake should actually be open at this point. This is the explosion. It comes up. It opens up the exhaust. And then by the time it comes up here, wait a minute. Okay, so actually Jimmy made a bubble. So, okay, basically the crankshaft will spin twice, but this camshaft will only spin once. So actually I forgot about that. I completely forgot about that until now, because I'm like, wait, something's not right. So we actually need to come in here and we actually need to fix this. Luckily this is a fairly easy fix. All we need to do is just change this from 360 to 720. And is what we'll do is we'll come over here to 720. So this is already at 360. We're actually going to change this to, you guessed it, 720. And we actually need to, there we go. Let's go into the animation. And with this selected, I'm actually just going to zoom out. I'm going to select all of these, right click, and we're going to go to handle type. We're going to do a vector, so this way it stays smooth all the way across. So what about these pistons? Well, these pistons, we will literally, to do what I just did, because we were on this tool, all I did was press Q on the keyboard. But we're actually going to be able to select all of these right in here. Not that. Oh, wait, no, we can't do it that way. That's right, I forgot. Okay, so we're actually going to select all of these. We're going to copy keyframes. Wow, we can't copy multiple keyframes? Oh, that sucks. Okay, so, hey guys, guess what? You can't copy multiple... Wait, can you copy multiple? Maybe we can come in here and do it. If we come in here and do it, that'd be great. So we actually don't need this first one. The reason why, because this one and this one are the same. So we actually just need these right here. So we'll go to copy. And then this is at 45, so 360 plus 45, 405. And then we'll hit paste. So with any luck, this should keep its transforms. And it does. Awesome. And so we're going to do the same thing here. So this one's actually going to be a little different because this one actually does it at 15. So we'll select all of these. We will go copy, 360 plus 15, you guessed it, 375. And we'll go paste. And we can see that that is now working. So we do that for here. We select all these. I'm not selecting this first one. That's very important that you do not select that first one. But this first one starts at 45. Let me verify that. 45, okay. And because it's at 360, that means we'll go back to 405 and we'll hit paste. Lastly, we'll come to this one. Get over here. This one starts at 16. Okay. So actually this one I screwed up on, but that's okay, because you won't notice that one frame difference. So at 360 plus, I'm going to say 15. I know it's 16, but 15. You know what? Screw it. Why not? We'll just do it there. We'll hit copy, paste. And so we can see that now this is actually looking a lot better. Like it's actually still moving like we'd expect it to. So we get to do the same thing with these. This starts at 45. So we're going to go to copy. And since that's at 360, that would be 405. And we'll go paste. Double check that. And it looks good. Do the same thing here. We will select these keyframes. Copy. 405. Paste. Double check the animation. That looks good. Same thing here. Copy. 405. Paste. Select these in here. Copy. Paste. Okay, there we go. So now I can get back to talking about these. So generally, whichever direction the motor spins, so the motor is actually turning counterclockwise, which I really screwed up on, because usually engines spin clockwise. Screw it, this is a special, unique engine. Only one of its kind exists in this world. I don't know. I had to say it though. So the rule of thumb, whatever direction the engine spins, in this case this one spins counterclockwise, that's the rotation of the camshaft. Why is that important? Well, because this is at TDC, and so right here is the power stroke. Coming up from frame 180 is the intake stroke. So that means this right here needs to be 90 degrees. So I'm actually going to undo that. I'm going to do this. I'm going to turn this till it's at 90 degrees. So after the power stroke, oh, this is going to drive me crazy. Okay, so after we have the power stroke, so right here, this is burnt fuel, comes up, and this right here, at 180, the exhaust needs to get ready to open. So I'm actually going to set the keyframes there. I'm going to, there we go. I'm going to set the keyframes there. And once it is all the way to the top at 360, this actually needs to be shut. Now, with that being said, at that point, these are going to kick in. So we will set these at 360. And then we'll come back down, because this is the intake. So it looks like 540. And so this is where the intake is actually fully open. No, I'm sorry, it needs to be closed at that point. And we will set all channels. Okay, so right here, the intake starts to open, and then it's shut once it goes all the way down. It's actually the same thing with this. As the piston starts moving up, the exhaust starts opening. Right here it is fully open, and then once it goes all the way to the top, it is now fully closed, and then this intake will open up, and then it'll go through there. Now we're not actually setting these keyframes, I was just showing you this as an example. The reason why we're not setting these keyframes, let's go ahead and, where are you at? Delete keyframes, there we go. The reason why we're not setting those is because I was just wanting to show you that. Instead of setting those keyframes, we're actually going to set... give me 1 second, you guys. I'll be right back. Alright, so we are back. When we left off, we were talking about the camshaft. And about this piston stroke. So this is actually going to be at 540. So is what we need to do is we actually need to start duplicating the rest of these. Now, one thing to keep in mind is... this will also have a cam bearing for the cam bearing bridges. If you have an overcam or an overhead cam system like this, the camshaft will rest here. But not all vehicles have cams on top. Some of the cams are actually inset inside the block themselves. Those will usually sit off to the side like so. And so there's actually rods that will push up on the valves to open those up. We're not doing that design because I don't feel like it. But one thing that I do want to specify on this specifically is these lobes. So we're going to go ahead and duplicate them. We're going to move these down to about here. We'll duplicate those. Move those down to here. Duplicate those and move those down to here. And because we have snapping on, I know all of these are lined up. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to start setting all these up. So if this is going to be on the power stroke right here, so this is at TDC, which means this one will be the next one to fire off. So if this is going to be the next one to fire off, that means these valves need to be closed. But more specifically, these actually need to be rotated 180 degrees. So if this is at 90, this will need to now be at negative 90. Probably helps if I actually... oh, come on. So why do these need to be at negative 90, Jimmy? Well, the reason why is because this engine works counterclockwise. So, in fact, I actually need to create one valve. Or I need to create 4 valves. Or not 4 valves. Four of the cams, 4 of the lobes that will tell me which direction the engine is moving. So, the way we're going to do this, I'm actually going to just use paint. I like using this program to kind of like showcase everything. So, this is our engine. You know what, I'm just going to do 1, 2, 3, and 4. So this will represent our cylinders and the firing order. So this will be, the valves closest to the front will be intake, and the ones furthest will be exhaust. And I'm actually just going to keep this off to the side. So I know these valves right here will be my intake valves. And so right here, this is going to be coming up on the intake stroke. So if this is coming up on the intake stroke, then I know this one is already going to be on the intake stroke, because when it comes up, that's when this one will explode. So that means that if this one is on the intake stroke, right here is when the valves need to be shut, which they are. If we come back to this one, let's see, this is actually going to be spinning, so these right here need to be rotated at 90. And the reason why these need to be rotated, because this engine will come down here, so that's at 180. And so at 180, yeah, at 180, these will be upwards, because that'll be an additional 90. And then coming up here, which is at 360, so right here, Yeah, so that should be correct. So once we have this set, and I think it is set because this should actually be where it is, but then these will need to be an additional 180 past that. There we go. So right here, this is going to be, let's see, so 180, because this will be the exhaust stroke. So I'm just trying to think if I have my math correct or not. I really don't want to go through what I just went through. It would really help if I wasn't so tired. Yeah. Okay, so anyways, what I was thinking, this right here, even though it's 180 degrees on the crankshaft, it's actually only 90 degrees on the camshaft. So right here, that would actually mean that these need to be facing upwards. So this actually need to be at 180. So as what should happen is at 180, these will now be sideways. So the lobes will be sticking out to the side. And then at going up towards the 360, they'd actually be facing down, which would be technically an interference engine. You know what, screw it. Let's go ahead and just do this as a quick test. We're actually going to select everything on here. I missed one. We're going to duplicate this, and we're just going to move this off to the side. This will actually tell us immediately if I'm doing this right, because right now I'm just way too tired, you guys. I'm sorry. I'm super exhausted. So I'm actually going to set all channels right there. Set. Yeah. So at 720, this is actually going to do a full 360. So if that's at 90, 90 plus 360, wow, my brain's not even working. It's 450. So we're going to set this at 450. And we will set that. So right here, this is the compression stroke. And then right there, that's where the valves open. So yeah, right there, that would actually crush the valves, because that's showing the valves to be fully open. So yeah, that would actually just crush the shit out of the valve. So these actually need to be... see, I can't even think. Let me go into animation real quick. So what I need to do is I need to basically need to make sure that... Well, I don't care about location. I'm just concerned about the Y rotation. So, but basically, is what I need to do is I just need to make sure that, like, what we have for this camshaft is actually set the way it needs to be. So I'm going to go in here, I'm going to go to handle type and vector, and we're needing to double check this. So let's go into the front view. That won't work, but this will. So right there, that's all the way down, which is where it should be. Okay, so this right here, that means that these actually need to be rotated a bit more, because right here at 360, if this was down, that means the valves are all the way open. So we do need to rotate this a little bit. The only thing that's kind of concerning to me is at 180, this shows the valves to just start to open. So the valve should have already been open at this point. And that's like the main thing that I am noticing. So that the valve should have been open at this point, and... Or I'm sorry, they should have been open. They should be starting to open, which they are starting to open. But just the fact that it goes all the way up at this point, that's the part that's concerning to me. So basically we'll actually need to create an offset for that. No big deal. and go from there. Which a lot of this I can actually just modify whenever I go in to actually create this, so that's not a big deal. It's just the primary setup that I'm looking for. So all of these, I'm actually going to set them up the same just to make it easy. Let's see. So is what I actually want to do. I'm going to make all these set up the exact same. So I'm actually going to delete all of these extras, or not extras, but I'm going to delete all of these. And I'm just going to simply duplicate these right here. I'm going to go back into layout. And I'm going to duplicate them, move them over, and there we go. So now is what I want to do is I want to go ahead and join these real quick. So let me go to add, no, not add, object join. I'm sure right now you can tell that I'm like, I am so tired. Okay, so I'm actually going to set the keyframe there, and at 720 I'm going to change this. If this is at 90, that means it needs to be 450. So it'll do a full rotation. Why is it not doing a rotation? Because I didn't set the keyframe, that's why. Alright, so that will do a rotation. Beautiful. So let's go back into animation. Select these. We'll go into handle type, vector. And we can go back into layout. Now I'm actually kind of double question. I'm pretty sure, yeah, it'd have to be one rotation. There's no other way to do it. Not mathematically anyways. Okay, so now is what we need to do, now that we have this rotation set up. This is the stroke of the engine. Oh, actually, yeah, okay, sweet. So, I'm actually going to delete these keyframes. I'm going to show you something. So I do this in Maya all the time. We have this cylinder right here, which has all the other things that we've combined to it. If we do Control G and create a new collection, we're going to call this camshaft collection. Hit OK. So now we have a camshaft collection here. We can actually animate this. And I'll show you the advantage of this. So we're going to... Oh, okay, so you can't. That sucks. Alright, so I just found something else I'm not too fond of Blender with. But that is okay, because we're still going to make this work. So we're actually going to... how are we going to do this? We'll just get the transforms right here. So I'm going to hit Control C and click on this down here, Control D. Come back over here to the Z, Control V. I copied the wrong one. Control C. Control V. There we go. Beautiful. And so is what I'm actually going to do is I'm actually going to parent this to this object. And the reason for this is because I can actually set the keyframe here, 720. So this will actually need to be 360. We'll hit set. And now this will rotate with it. But also, if I need to, so like right here, coming up, so at 180, I know that this is going to be my, oh, what's that called? This is going to be my exhaust stroke. So, what I need to do is, actually to have this set at about 180 or so. And then this will automatically turn. So right here, this will be all the way up at 360. And all I need to do is just make sure that this is completely closed, in which it is. And so now with this being completely closed, now I need to right click on this. Wait, I did a join earlier. Yeah. Damn it, Bobby. Okay, that's fine. No, that is not fine. So not fine. Okay, so you can see what I'm doing now. How the hell would I have done a joined? Come on. Okay, well, I can't undo it back that far, but that is okay. Is what I can go ahead and do. Let's see. Oh, it doesn't give me the redo. Blender, you suck. That's fine. So we're going to come in here. We're actually going to select everything. We're going to go up to Mesh. And we're going to... No, it's... Vertex? Pretty sure it's Mesh. I'm like, not... Yeah, split. And we're going to... no, separate. That's what it is. So we're going to separate my loose parts. And then is what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to press 4 so I can go back into this. I'm going to press Q on the keyboard. I'm going to select every single one of these. And then I'm going to select this. I'm going to hit P to parent. And I'm going to do the exact same thing that I did just a second ago where I actually I don't even need to take that and duplicate it. I can just take this and animate it. So I'm going to set a keyframe. Set keyframe here. Go to 720 and set this to 450. Set a keyframe here. And so now this will all be animated. So all I have to do is realistically just set these. So this one right here is my exhaust. Man, I'm tired. So 180. The exhaust should be about right there. And then coming up on 360. No, I can actually just set this where... Oh, that is... No, not quite dead on. Close, but not quite. And so now I need to set this. This should be right at 90. Because now this is going to be opening. And then at 540, this is closing, coming up. Then we have combustion, which sets this back. Awesome. So that means if this is at... So this is at 90, and this is at 180. So that is our timing. Is all we have to do is select all of these, put all of these at 180. So this should be at 90. This should be at 180. Beautiful. And now we just have to figure out what it's going to be. So this is happening for fire number 1. Right here is the combustion. So if this is the combustion, that's the power stroke coming up. After 360 is going to be the exhaust stroke. So all we have to do is now we can select all 4 of these. And we have, let's see, the exhaust stroke. So the back one is actually the, so I'm going to go all the way up, 540. And for this, all I need to do is just bring it up right here, 415. There we go. Okay, 60 degrees. Awesome. And then we'll do the same thing for this one. So that's the power stroke for that one. Then that is the power stroke for that one. Comes up to 720. And that will be where the exhaust valve finally closes. Math. So this one is actually going to be the easiest to set up because this one right here, the exhaust valve has just closed. Combustion, exhaust. So let's see, this right here, this is combustion, combustion, then that one's combustion, this one is combustion, which means the stroke right here where it goes up. So at 180, this is exhaust. And I'll explain what I was just doing. Whoa! I'll explain what I was just doing there here in just a second. So, I was looking at it. So I already know that this one right here is TDC for the firing order 1, as we can see here. So this one will fire once. Then when this one's all the way down, this one's all the way up, this one will fire. Then when this one's all the way down and this one's all the way up, it will fire. And so by going along that line, along that logic of thinking, this is where the explosion happens on this one. This one comes all the way up, so then this one has an explosion. Then that third one right here comes all the way up. This one has an explosion. This one comes all the way up. Then this one has an explosion. And then it doesn't come back up until right here. So when it comes up, this is the exhaust stroke. So right here at the top of 180, that means the exhaust valve needs to be shut. And that is how I set up a camshaft. Normally I do it a lot faster than that. I'm just extremely tired. So with that being said, let's do the valves real quick. Only reason why I'm saying this is because I'm tired. I'm probably not going to remember them. How do we do the valves? Real simply, we'll go to Add. We're going to go to Mesh. We're going to go to Cone. For the cone vertices, that's way too many. I'm actually going to say 12. Let's make it 16. So what we're going to do is we're actually going to have a radius. Wait, what is radius 2? Oh, that. Okay. 0.2. There we go. Is what we're going to do. This actually works out really nicely. I actually like that. We're actually going to go into the edge mode. Turn on X-ray. Press W. I'm going to turn off snapping. So we're going to bring this out. And we're going to go kind of high on the faces here. I'm not going to lie. Why? Because I'm tired and I just want to make it look decent. So we're actually going to extrude this up just a little bit. Not a whole lot, just a little. I'm going to scale this in right about here. Then we're going to extrude up again. And we're going to bring that in right about here. Going to extrude up a little bit more this time. Bring that right here. Extrude this up. And we will press W and move that up the rest of the way. Beautiful valve. And I don't know what my dogs are getting into. I hate to ask. So I'll be right back. So my dog decided that she would get onto my shelf and get into one of the bottles I had on the shelf. She does not like hot sauce. Alright, so this is where we left off with the valve. Now this right here is actually really, really wide. I don't know how familiar you are with engines particularly, but this is actually like super wide. So I'm actually going to scale that in and just bring it up a little bit. Something like that. And then I'm actually going to go and select these vertices right here. I'm just going to move these up just a little bit. So that looks more like a proper valve. The valve itself is a little large, but that is okay. So the next thing we need to do is we actually need to come in and turn off X-ray and select this. So we're actually going to extrude this down, and then we're going to do an inset. We will delete the faces. Let's go ahead and go into vertex, and we're going to, all I'm doing is just double clicking on this edge so I can select all the vertices, and we'll go to I'm just going to right click. I'm going to do merge vertices at center there. Alright, so this is going to be our intake valve, and so what we want to do is we actually want to go ahead and move it into position. So I'm going to move it right there. and I'll be right back. That dog is retarded. Okay, back to where we were. So, valves. The only purpose of a valve, you actually have two types of valves. You have your intake valves and your exhaust valves. The intake valve allows air and fuel to come in. That's all it does. It literally just goes down, air and fuel come in, it goes right back up and closes. A lot of vehicles nowadays, they actually have direct injection, which means only air goes through the intake valve, and fuel, well, I mean, I'm trying to think how to explain this. No, actually, it still goes through the intake. Yep, still goes through the intake. I'm talking out of my ass. The only thing that's inside the cylinder is just the spark plug. So the intake valve still lets in air and fuel. It just has to go through the head first. But that's for a later discussion. So we actually need to make this a lot smaller. So I'm actually glad I set this up the way I did, and I'll show you why here in just a second. So we need to set this up ideally. We should be able to move one valve here. That's outside the cylinder space. So one valve here, and then let's see, so that should actually be, looks like it's right there. Yeah, so that fits. Okay, so we're going to have two valves here. These are our intake valves. If you remember what I said earlier, intake valves are always larger than the exhaust valves. So the exhaust valves, we're actually going to scale these down just a little bit, like so. The next thing we need to do is we actually need to extend these. So I'm actually going to go press 1. I'm going to go into X-ray. There we go. I'm going to move these up like so. Alright, and then the next thing I'm going to do is press 4. So this right here and these need to be moved up. How high? That's actually a very good question. I'm actually going to move these over, and I need to line these up just like I have these lined up. Okay, I didn't line up the exhaust valves very good, but I did line these up pretty good. So I'm going to move these here, and we're going to click on these. I'm actually going to line those up right there in the center. I'm going to do the same with these real quick. Make sure those are right in the center of that. So I'm actually going to select these and duplicate these as well, and just move them in where they are centered. So I don't care about where the intake is at. I'm actually looking at where these line is at, making sure that's about in the center of that. Does it have to be exact? No, because we're not building this engine. But it'll be pretty close, and what's even cooler is this engine will be timed. It'll be running backwards, but that's besides the point. So how do we know how high to set this? Well, luckily, our engine is already, there we go. Our engine is already positioned where we need it. As I stated before, this is an interference engine. Interference engine means the valves and the pistons compensate the same space, but at different times. Which means if you were to time this engine and you were one tooth off, you would crush a valve. Do engines like this really exist in real life? Yes, they do. I have worked on engines like these. They are a pain in the ass to time. Well, not always. The ones with timing chains actually aren't too terribly bad, but if it has a timing belt, you have to be really careful. What about you, Jimmy? Have you ever crushed valves? Oh, hell yes, I have. Okay, so this is where the fun part is. I say fun part. It's not really fun, but it is what it is. So now we need to do the rocker arms. The rocker arms are actually going to be... It's not going to be fairly difficult. It's really not going to be difficult at all. It'll just be a little consuming. Ah. Okay, there we go. So let me make sure. Okay, awesome. So one thing I want to state before I continue any further, if you're doing a single overhead cam, this is your setup for it. Whether it's a single overhead 16 valve system, this is going to be your setup. If you're doing a dual overhead cam, this is where we start changing things up. So I'm going to select all of these. I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to duplicate it. Ugh, that dog is such an asshole. I'm actually going to move it off to the side just for the time being. I'm then going to take this. I'm going to move this off to the side. So what is different then? Well, here's the difference. These two and these two. And then we'll go ahead and switch up and say these two and these two. We'll switch up again and say these two and these two. We'll switch up again and say these two and these two. You can delete these, and you can actually do an offset. You can still have them both in there if you want. That's completely optional, but if we look at a dual overhead cam, so if we look at a dual overhead cam engine, and naturally, here we go, you can look in there and see that, hey, that's actually, oh no, that's a different style engine. So this one's actually different from what we're building. Well, it's not super different, but it's a little different. Come on, give me a high resolution image, someone. Here we go. Yeah, that's kind of high resolution. So the way that this is set up is, this is an inline 4. Your spark plugs go here. Your valves are actually right here. Now this one actually has lifters in place of rocker arms. So it's not exactly what I was looking for, but I should still be able to kind of explain to you what I'm going for. So this side right here, this is the exhaust side, and this side right here is the intake side. So if you notice, there are 2 valves here on the exhaust side and 2 valves right here for the intake side. But one thing to keep in mind is that for this, you don't have the rocker arms. So I'm not able to show you exactly what I'm aiming for, but it's going to be pretty close. But basically, you only have one set of lobes on each cam. So what I was hoping to find is one with rocker arms. No, it's the same thing. Well, it's not the same thing, but it's a similar setup. So yeah, basically this type of overhead system, it doesn't have rocker arms. Realistically, this shouldn't either, because rocker arms are really only common with cam and block systems. So if you're typing, trying to think how to explain this. So you have the, you know what, I'm just going to do it this way, and I'm going to show you this real quick. So we have the camshaft right here, which has all these different lobes on it, which is what I just showed you. Inside of here, though, you have what's called rods. That doesn't show very good image. Here we go. This one's excellent. So you have your lobes, like if this was the center of it, like what this guy's holding. You have your cam lobe, you have your lifter, and then you have your push rod, or as I just call rods. And then you have your rocker arms. So as this pushes up, this pushes this back part of the rocker arm up, which pushes this spring down, but also opens up this valve. When this goes back, the spring pushes back the other direction, which then closes the valve. So I was actually hoping to find something that was a little different from this design, because I've seen some really weird designs in the past. And I was hoping... Yeah, see, this one is actually double camshafts. This is an overhead system. So this one actually has the lifters right here. But I'm still going to do the rocker arms on this design, because why not? And I think their rocker arms are always kind of cool looking versus the little lifters. And, I mean, it's whatever. So, yeah, generally speaking, though, you won't have rocker arms on what we're doing. You only have rocker arms if you have a cam and block. Otherwise, you're not going to have them, generally. In fact, actually, let me do a quick search on this, because I'm thinking there is a vehicle. I could just be talking out of my ass, but what vehicle is that? Chrysler 300 V6 engine. Yeah, bastard. Okay, so no, this one does have rocker arms. I better say, because I remember working on one of these. I could have sworn that it had rocker arms. I'm like 90% sure it does. It does have rocker arms. Okay. So, not always, but typically, this style of engine will have lifters. Will not have rocker arms. It'll have lifters. But this is one of those very, very few exceptions. I know you can't see that too well. I'm going to see if I can pull up the image of it and really show you. So these right here are the rocker arms. It has its pivot point right here. That allows it to go up and down, and then the cams just roll on this little roller bearing right here. So, yeah, that's pretty much what we're doing. Which, actually, I should have set this up a little bit differently. But you know what? We're doing our own unique design. Why? Because we can. So, yeah, this video's going on way longer than I thought it would. So, the next part, we're actually going to start working on setting up the rocker arms, the springs, and we'll get all this the rest of the way animated. I forgot about that. What has this animated with it, I wonder? I don't see any animation points in here. Oh, I'm so tired. So I see that this is animated and it's spinning, but I don't know what it's animated with, though. That is weird. There we go. Yeah, that is weird. So, I'm actually going to fix this real quick. I'm really, really surprised it is not... I know why. I think I know why. Nope, that's not why. Okay, yeah, so is what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to stop the video right here. Save your scene, and we'll get back into this in the next video, whatever that might be.